spent the morning together.
Yes.
Started before the sun at 0500. I think it's interesting, right? With your background coming from military is very structured, very routine, get into good habits, discipline. I think normal civilians, everybody has their routines, some of them good, some of them bad. And veterans coming out, some maintain that discipline and structure. Some seem to struggle with maintaining it. So why did you embark on this journey to establish this disciplined start of your day?
15 years of war, 23 years of service, 18 plus years Special Forces Green Beret, 27 countries. You see the worst in the world, right? You see the worst in humanity. You see the worst in yourself. And sometimes life takes us in a direction, right? Sometimes we get lost so we can be found. So I tell you, after my 23 years, I was lost. I was stuck. I was stuck in a rut. Like most veterans, Patrick, I was addicted to painkillers. I caught a IED in '05, and I was prescribed painkillers. But what I realized, it didn't just numb my pain; it numbed the pain that I had inside as well, from lost teammates. All the bad stuff we see around the world. So when I got out of the military, I was kind of stuck in this drug addiction. I was stuck in this really bad rut, no purpose. And it was that point where I reflected, and I became the person I didn't want to be, right? So, in the teachings of Bushido, teachings of samurai, one must journey within. All through my life, I want to tell you, all through my life, I traveled around the world, 27 countries. I fought for the people, so I looked for the answers in the world. But the answer was within.
When you were in the midst of the rut and the struggle, were you aware of yourself falling short of your own expectations and your own potential?
I didn't really notice it until I got out of the military. You're moving so fast in the military, especially on the A teams. You just don't see it.
Right.
You don't see it,
Because it's mission first.
It was mission, it was men, but you see your performance dropping, right? But you just think it's everybody else, kind of deal.
Right. But
what I started noticing was, my performance not only dropped, but the way I looked at things, So those were the first clues. And when I got out of the military, I had to sit in this space. And, not a lot of people understand what that means unless you kind of seen it, right? Mm-hmm. So you sit in it, and it's forever burned into every crevice of your soul. Mm-hmm. You sit in it. And, I didn't want to sit in it anymore, man. So, I dumped down all the pain, literally cold turkey.
Wow.
I dumped it all out, and man, it was hard. I tell you, I was shivering, I was shaking. Withdrawals, right? Heroin withdrawals, pretty much opiates.
Yep.
But I sat every morning. I didn't believe, man. I knew that if I look within, I knew that if I pray, and I didn't believe in any of it, because all I saw was the worst in the world, right?
Right.
But I prayed, and I didn't believe. And I sat for many years, in pain, and
just suffering,
yeah.
trying to find an answer,
trying to get your bearings again, right? And we're going through drug withdrawals at the same
Right.
time. So for the first 6 months, it was stomach cramps, it was shivering. 4
Plus the
o'clock in the
pain
morning.
coming back.
Yeah, 4 o'clock in the morning, I would roll out of bed, I'm dead, and I would sit in darkness. I remember there was a lot of times I was shaking and shivering from vomiting, and I would sit. Total darkness. It was so much pain, right? So
What kept you going?
discipline. Yeah, I had this amazing discipline. I've been taught this discipline. I was adopted by the Special Forces. I was taught this discipline at a very young age. You know, military. At
Never
such a young
thought about
age.
giving up?
No. I just realized it wasn't working, but I knew if I sit here with God, and I didn't believe, right? And I wrote down all the things that was, I was grateful for, because I was at that time, I was trying to heal myself. So I would listen to podcasts about mental health, post-military, battle fatigue, PTSD. I was listening to what a doctor had to say about trauma, and I was trying to implement these things, but I didn't believe. So I would sit there, and I'd say the third year, it was around the third year, right? I was sitting on the deck, and I heard birds. Now look, when I say that, we always hear birds, right? But
Right.
to truly hear and be present enough to appreciate that noise, right? So that was the first thing. And then I started noticing, the sun, and this is through periods of years. Understand? It's not like, I quit and, I found no, it was
Right.
years I would sit. And finally I show gratitude to the sun, right? Like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. He's giving us life, through this darkness. And, at that point when I was healing myself and I would sit there in disbelief, I would focus in on breath. Right, so as a Green Beret, we would study a lot about intelligence. I would study different, in the military, I had to study different commando groups. I had to study, country studies. I had to understand that's how we find, fix, and kill our enemies.
Right.
But what happened if the enemy is you?
Right.
Right, and that enemy was getting stronger. Right, and the voice was getting louder, it was stronger, and that
While
energy.
you were getting weaker.
Yeah. And I could feel, the grip that it had. So anyways, I would practice, I would listen to what the monks had to say on podcasts, and I would listen to different transactions between people. I was studying my enemy. Right, and then I would write notes during the day, like, how do I feel in the mornings when I wake up? For me, during that time, and for many years, it was straight up anxiety. It's the first thing I felt. Right, and then I'll have default network thinking where it goes straight to what I thought about yesterday and the traumas that I thought about 12 years ago, whatever. Right? And each thought comes with an emotion. Well, I had a lot of trauma, right? So I would sit there and I would feel, now I was present enough to feel these emotions. Right? Because, I tell you, Patrick, a lot of us go through life unaware. We're just not present.
Correct.
Right? And then,
Well, isn't that a defense mechanism, right?
Yeah.
Like if I'm not in this moment that is painful, if I'm not in this moment that is boring or is routine or is not what I aspire to do, if I can just shut off, kind of numb my way through it,
but it
turn into a robot,
it doesn't go away.
It doesn't. Builds up baggage.
Right, you just said it builds up baggage. So if you're aware of this baggage, if you're aware of every emotion through your everyday life, through, I don't know, the form of meditation, mindfulness, then now you're situationally aware. Right? So if I send you out to the combat zone and you go out in the, in this combat zone where you don't even know the enemy, you don't know where the location, you don't understand reactionary forces, you don't understand infrastructure, you don't understand terrain, you're unaware. You're unaware of the situation. So if you go through life unaware of your emotions, your thoughts within each moment that's tied to an emotion, then you're
also under-equipped.
You're under-equipped.
Yeah.
Right? So you're not aware and you're under-equipped and you're not present. And I would say majority of the world lives this way.
Correct.
Yeah.
They wake up with the goal of, let's get through the day so I can go back to bed tonight.
Yes. So you're not really living.
No.
You're surviving.
You're surviving.
And surviving is not thriving.
No, certainly not. That's a whole different level.
So, I got tired of feeling this way and I practiced and I was failing, man. I was failing.
Yeah.
I was doing a mountain warfare training in the Himalayas, and I met a Tibetan monk and I asked the monk a serious question. What's the meaning of life? Serious, right?
Seems like a reasonable question to ask a Tibetan monk in the Himalayas. I mean,
yeah. Life is but a hand that submerges itself in a flowing river. Gift from the heavens, past the earth, melted down into water. Now this energy flows through this river. The hand submerges itself in it. Goes numb from the cold feel of this river. This energy moves the hand. The rocks and gravel and sand moves underneath the hand. Remove the hand from this flowing river, wipe it dry. Did that moment not last forever? That is life. It's so we can gain experience.
this is what he said to you?
Yes.
But how did you react to that?
Well,
I mean, now you recite that, like, because this is part of your life and it's part of your daily routine and everything. But at that point, when you were still lost and you were still ill-equipped and you were still trying to figure things out, like, how did you react to that? Obviously, it stuck with you.
During that time frame, I was full of fire. So I didn't look at things the way I do now.
Yeah.
Aware.
But you remembered it.
I do. I remember how deep that message was because I do understand what he was saying.
But also, like, I mean, so this is the first time I've heard that.
Really?
And beyond it obviously making sense, I think what's most thought-provoking about that is that an individual has thought about that for so long that they had the consciousness to be able to respond to that question in such a thoughtful way. I like to think of myself as a student. I want to learn from everybody around me. And, through my travels, I've encountered a lot of people that I look at and, from appearance or from stature or from accomplishments or whatever it happens to be, I think, wow, I bet that person has the answer. And you ask them that question, and it's been such a string of disappointments because, that person who supposedly has it all together, well, they should know the answer to a question like that, right? Or they should be able to respond with something. And in most cases, it's, to keep getting more, or work harder than the last day, or it's like, really? That's the secret to life?
There's no truth. There is no truth that comes from what other people say or your narrative or what you think is actual. The only truth there is in life comes from consistency.
Routine. So your morning routine started at 0500.
04.
Okay. So
Let me tell you
walk
why.
us through that.
Why? Everything that I do is for a reason, you know. Bruce Lee says that the world is your teacher. See, at this point in my life, you know, I am a commando. I have been taught by the world in so many different senses, as in I ran with different foreign commando units. I have experienced worldly, right? So the answer was external, and then when I looked internally, it was a different war. So my thing was, you know, I had to listen to different podcasts and doctors. I told you I gained intelligence, right? And I even went through different seminars. I went to Tony Robbins' seminar. I was the guy who was dancing, shaking my body, screaming at the top of my lungs because, look, Patrick, I was hurting. And I needed answers. So I was willing to
Try anything.
I was willing to let go of the ego, right? So there I was learning to change my physiology. And you know, the mind and body's connected, so I extract that lesson. I extract the lesson of journaling. I extract the lesson the importance of spirituality, physical training in mind and body. I extract these lessons through my life. Right? And I wouldn't say I had one teacher. You know, I just told you about the monk in Tibet when I was 24 years old. Right? So my life was my teacher. So then I started dissecting on what worked. Now I understand how the enemy worked. The mind and body's connected. The mind and body's connected. What you think about today neurologically is what you're going to think about tomorrow. What you think about yesterday is what you think about today.
Physically.
And it affects you physically because every thought is tied to experience. Every experience is tied to an emotion. The more traumatic the experience, the more traumatic the emotion. Understand? So now you know how the enemy works. And this enemy was programmed during the prehistoric time. Right? When we were hunter-gatherers, this mind was developed to look at dangers, so fight or flight. But see, we're different from a lot of other animals because we have this big cortex, right? And we can think and we can generate thought. Memory. Memory is tied to emotions. Emotion is tied to baggage, right? So if you never release that emotion, it's still in you.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So my everyday routine is I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning because it's hard. Not everybody wants to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It requires discipline. So first, I show discipline. I wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. 4:30, I'm sitting out, well, you saw, in a private 5 acres, dark deck, right? Aspen tree, so beautiful out here, isn't it?
Amazing.
And you know, I sit there in total darkness and I focus in on my breath. It starts there. You know, if at first, you know, you may not lock into breath. Okay, look, it took me years. But I tell you what I do. I focus first on my breath. And then I start this rhythm. I build this rhythm of breathing. And what am I doing? I'm changing my physiology. If I'm changing my physiology by regulating my breathing pattern, my physiology, my body is connected to my mind. So once I breathe, I'm breathing in, and then I focus on breath. Inhale, exhale. Look, it's going to be very hard at first. Okay? I focus more on feeling than on thought. Like people say, focus on inhale. I don't focus on that. I focus on my inhale. I focus on how cool the air is entering my lungs. And on exhale, I focus how hot the air is exiting my lungs. But as I breathe into my abdominal, I can feel anxieties. I could feel stress. I could feel maybe some baggage that I had from yesterday, thoughts, right? So I'm breathing that baggage out. I'm breathing that emotion out because I don't want that trapped in my body. You know, scientists have identified that people have trapped emotions that causes physical health.
Of course.
Like people felt like they were about to have a heart attack, and it was just an emotion that was trapped in that heart.
Well, sure. It's, that's what stress is an emotion, right? Fear is an emotion. Hurt is an emotion. And all of that creates stress. And, I think it's universally accepted now, causes of early death, of heart disease and stroke, and even, now they're speculating even cancer, that, this stress can build up toxins in your body, and, you have to find a way to release that stress.
You have to release, right? It's very important.
And so, I think a lot of our audience and a lot of, veterans struggle with that, right? They struggle with how to deal with that stress. And, in a lot of cases, they're not healthy ways, right? So drinking may, give you the perception of relieving that stress, right? Because it numbs your mind. The problem is it pollutes your body, which then pollutes your mind, and it, becomes a carousel. So, as you talk about this to a bunch of people that haven't been enlightened, it sounds a little odd, right? When you're talking to somebody that doesn't meditate and, maybe hasn't realized that, you used to be that person. Mm-hmm. Like, what kept you going in that journey to get to that point to now you see and feel the benefits of that portion of your morning routine? Because, a lot of people are going to try it the first time. Like my wife, God bless her, she always tells me, God, you have such a noisy mind. Like, you need to learn to meditate, and it would help you so much. And just try it. Here, sit with me and try it. And I'll sit there and I'll tell you in 30 seconds, it feels like I've been there for 30 minutes, and my mind is bouncing around through 50 different things. It's anything but peaceful and relaxing. And I just want to get my hands back on something and get back to work. So if that's my experience with it, then my quick reaction is, yeah, it doesn't work for me. But that's not the answer.
If I give you 45-pound dumbbell and you never lift weights before, do you think you can curl it? If you never ran 5 miles, do you think your cardio is developed, your lungs are developed? It's almost ignorant to think that you sit in meditation, you don't see the results, but yet a lot of the same guys go to the gym and they don't see results until maybe 5 to 10 years later.
Right.
Right?
But they stay with it.
But meditation, because you don't see the result after 1 or 2.
Right. Yes.
It's almost ridiculous, isn't it? Foolish.
Completely, when you say it that way, sure.
So foolish. The thing is, you have to exercise the muscle. The mind is a muscle. You have to exercise that muscle. And there's only certain ways that you can exercise a muscle. Mm-hmm. If I tell you, hey, you need to develop your cardio, there's only certain ways that you can develop your cardio.
Right.
Same with strength training, same with powerlifting, same with muscular endurance. There's only certain ways. So the thing is, you have to sit. You have to sit there in meditation. You have to sit there in quiet. Even if you don't believe, sit there. And I promise you, if you sit there, look, man, I told you, 3 years before I even heard a bird. So sit there.
Make yourself do it.
Make yourself do it, because look, man,
you have to make yourself get up at 0400 too.
If you're saying that it's important to be a good human being, or is it important in your life to be happy? Well, happiness don't come from money. No. Happiness doesn't come from success. It doesn't come from being a celebrity. It doesn't come from your cars, your house, or happiness comes from consistency and what you're willing to do to make yourself happy every single day. And that's training the brain, which is a muscle.
Right. Right.
So, I sit in meditation in the mornings. First, it's called mindfulness meditation. So you have to sit there, you have to train your mind every single day. And, people are like, how do you train your mind? You have to slow down that analytical mind. So, okay, so 95% of your brain is subconscious. 5% of your brain is conscious and is divided through the analytical mind. That's what decides what's right or wrong. That's your narrative of things. So when you wake up in the morning, your brain waves hasn't fully woken up yet. That's why I wake up so early, so I can lock on to that lower frequency early on.
Well, I think what I found interesting, which was different than my experiment, right? My experiment was, with my wife, and she happened to be out in the backyard, and she said, here, try this. And meanwhile, you hear a neighbor's car, and them arguing in the front yard a street over, and then my dog runs by and wants me to throw the ball for it, and then you hear the kids run around doing God knows what in the house while we're in the backyard. But what I noticed about the experience this morning that felt far closer to even me meditating, watching you meditate, was, you're right, it was darkness. It was before the rest of the world woke up. It was peaceful. There was a fire, there was incense.
And let's talk about that, like the incense, a lot of people try to tie my spirituality, my practice of mindfulness, meditation, they try to tie that into some kind of religion. It's not religion, right? The reason why I light incense first is because I'm breathing, I'm attaching to that sense, that smell that keeps me present. But spirituality is spirituality, right? Spirituality, the practice of it, that we believe in at a higher power. Right. And it's right here. So basically what I'm doing is that incense allows me to open up that channel into that world, that spirit world, right? So I can sit there with the divine, I could sit there with God, I could sit there with, spirituality, and I can rid myself from this world of ego, judgment, anxieties, and everything else. I'm transcending into the next, you see, in the next level of consciousness. Right. I'm living in a higher frequency. Yeah. So after I do that, you see me light the incense I'm also playing gratitude to the day, right? And when the sun comes up, I pray, to God for the day. I pray for life. But then I show gratitude. At first, when I didn't believe, I had a notebook and I had to write down what I'm grateful for. Right. Because I didn't believe. Yeah. How many times you say this, man? Patrick, you're an accomplished man. You come home, I'm grateful for my house. I'm grateful for my accomplishment. You really mean it. We don't live that way because when we look at the house, we go, I can get a bigger house. Yeah. I can drive a better car. You see? Because that's what made us who we are. That's our ego, right? That's makes us competitive in this physical world. But you have to look at the ego and the soul as two different entities. The soul is within the spiritual world, and the ego lives in this physical world, right? So basically, in the morning, I'm allowing the soul to lead me, not my ego. Right. I'm transcending past the ego. I'm sitting with my soul. I'm setting an intention. I'm showing gratitude. And when I set that intention that day, it's like a mission statement, right? So the intention of the day is easy for me. I want to be a better person. Right. Maybe sometimes I'm not, polite, because I have my stresses too, right? So sometimes my intention is, I want to be kind. I want to work on this today. Right? And you're setting out the intentions, and you're sitting in this spirit world with your soul, with the incense is opening up a doorway into this higher dimension, right? Level of consciousness.
Right. Right.
Regardless if you believe it or not, can you imagine just sitting with yourself and being thankful for that day? Like, you know, you don't have to think about it as in, you know, incense and light. That's my practice because I saw different practices throughout the world. And I drew a practice that worked for me.
Well, you know, what strikes me is, you know, I've traveled a lot, I've done a lot of things, and, you know, I wake up at 0400 every day, make myself do it because it's hard, same exact thing. I go downstairs and work out. Sometimes those are good workouts, sometimes they're not, but you still make the effort to work out. But then the rest of the routine, you know, is now I see just not a good use of time, right? And it is a routine, but I'll, you know, the family's still not awake. I'll, you know, jump in the shower, I'll get dressed, I'll go downstairs, I'll, you know, make a cup of coffee, I'll turn on the news, you know, which is a horrible idea. And, you know, wait for usually my daughter to wake up, and then she comes down and, you know, sits there with me, and then slowly the family starts waking up, and once they're awake, then, you know, head in, fight traffic, because I'm going in at, you know, 7 in the morning, so it's right in the middle of rush hour, so I sit on the freeway for 45 minutes, you know, full of a bunch of angry people, and then I'm usually in the office before anybody, so, you know, the first hour of the office, I'm kind of waiting for the team to get there and warm up and everything else. And again, so I look at all that, and then I look at your morning routine, and truly, this is just, you know, being enlightened just from this morning. I never would have said this before, but the thought of spending 30 minutes just quiet with yourself, thinking about things that you should focus on improving, you know, in yourself, and the things that you're grateful for, and, you know, wishing, praying well for the people that you care about, and even the people that you don't care about, just praying for a better world. Spending that time deliberately focusing on that, what a better use of time than watching the news or sitting on the freeway for 45 minutes, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I think, you know, every good plan and strategy starts with an efficient, effective plan, right? Mm-hmm. If we're going to conquer something, anything, yes. You know, just as your analogy earlier, you know, we try to avoid at all costs being dropped in blind into a scenario that we're supposed to fight our way out of, right? But isn't that life every day?
No.
It shouldn't be.
No. So you described to me your morning routine, just a snapshot. Patrick, although you get up early in the morning, you're reactive. Yeah. You see, you're reactive.
Right.
See, when I get up in the morning, I work on myself, so I'm not reactive. No. I set the intentions of the day, so I'm not reactive to the day. I know what my intentions of the day is.
Right.
It's to be kind.
Right.
It's to be a better businessman. It's to be more creative. It's to be whatever.
Right.
Well, you know, let's just talk about being a business guy. Being a business guy, you have to be creative, don't you? Mm-hmm. You have to think. Improvise. You have to navigate without emotion, right? So how many bad business deals have you made with bad emotions, right? Bad relationships, sure. Right? Bad missions. All this is created through bad emotions, right? Sure. He who can't control his emotions can't control the situation.
Right.
So when I get up in the morning, I control my emotion. Mm-hmm. I clear my mind of all things. So I'm not reactive.
Right. So you transitioned then from mind to body. So then you go from meditation into your morning workout.
Yes. So after gratitude, then I go into cardio training in the morning. So I do physical training twice a day, just off of my daily schedule, based off the demands right now. I'm doing physical training twice a day. In the morning, I concentrate more on cardio. Let me explain why. I practice intermediate fasting. So that means 7 o'clock at night, I don't drink sugars, I don't drink sugars anyways, but no carbs and no eating after 7 o'clock at night. Mm-hmm. So then when I wake up the next morning, I don't have sugar or carbs in me. Mm-hmm. And I know my fat burning zone, mm-hmm. right? If you train that way, you know within a heart rate, you know your fat burning zone. If I can maintain my fat burning zone for an hour, which is low impact cardio, mm-hmm. that I can maintain every single day without getting injured. Right. And that's how I start my day. Did I not train my body? Right? To be proficient, to be able to burn fat, to be able to have a good, mechanism to burn and release fat, and that's the thing, is like a lot of us, we overeat, we don't know when to eat, we don't know when to exercise. Some guys are like, I want to get really big, so they eat like crap and they get really big, and then they lack cardio. Some guys get too cardiovascular where they lose strength, right? It's about yin and yang, it's about balance. Right, so when I attack my physical training that I did in the morning was prep last night through my fasting. Right? So each moment feeds on to the next. So yesterday I fast, so this morning my blood, my sugar content and my carb content, I was able to burn fat. Mm-hmm. Right? And you saw me switch in between different machines. And the reason why is because once you lock onto a certain heart rate, right, then you're not spiking and lowering it anymore. So I changed to give me different routines and work out different muscle groups. Mm-hmm. Now, what I just do, I train my brain in the morning, my mind, to be at this elite level. Mm-hmm. And then now I'm locking in with my body to be at this elite level. Basically what I did is I line up the frequencies. Right. Mind and body, right? So after an hour and a half of cardiovascular training, right, then you saw me go and I sit in it, right? Usually for me, what I'm doing is I'm shocking my body again, because after you do your cardio training, I go into, cool downs, right? And your body's cold again. Mm-hmm. So then I jump in my hot tub to warm up my body again. So basically I'm changing my physiology again, mm-hmm. right? And notice how I go into deep breathing within that hot tub, because basically I'm changing my physiology. I'm slowing down my analytical brain, my mindset. I'm locking into mind and body again, right, which is programmed this morning to work at elite level. Right. Right? So basically I'm sitting in this elite level. And after I get out, imagine you get out of a hot tub or you get out of a pool or whatever, that change in temperature changes your body. It makes you present, right? So as I sit there, I light incense, my body and core temperature has changed now. I'm sitting in a physiology, I'm sitting in a different state. My mind is basically slow down. I just did it in the hot tub, right? Because I'm present now. I'm locking into the incense. Mm. So basically what I did was I trained my mind and body to perform and work at an elite level, and now I'm sitting in it. Right? And that's how I start my day. Right. And it's not reactive.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me because you're the first person in all of my travels that has laid it out in a way that makes so much sense to me that I feel like an idiot for not getting it sooner, which is a great thing, by the way. I love feeling like an idiot. We spend so much of our lives training for whatever our goal of success or whatever our definition of success is, right? Whether it's, SOF teams and all of the training in proficiency and tactics and physical and mental strength, or it's entrepreneurs or parents or whatever it happens to be. But I think it's so, even for our veterans, once they come back to the civilian life, I see a lot of them struggle with applying the same lessons and the same routine and the same discipline that made them successful operators to their personal lives once they become civilians. In my own life, I think there's just this sick thing in America today where, adults are programmed themselves almost with this martyr mentality that, oh, well, if I abuse and neglect, my health and, I don't take time for myself, for my mental health and well-being, and, oh, I won't take the time to cook well. Oh, well, I'm doing it all for my family. And meanwhile, that person's falling apart, right?
You're creating a false narrative, which is not
but
true.
Somehow, this is some badge of honor that they wear around. Like, yeah, look at how I abuse myself for the good of my family. What is that?
That's your narrative.
Yeah, that's ego and
That's your
programming
narrative.
and.
Is the same narrative as somebody got, if they've been robbed and then they become a victim or they have a bad relationship, they're a victim for the rest of their life. That's your narrative. Right. God's given us free will.
Yeah.
Right? That's your narrative. And for me, look, man, I went through trauma since, I was born in war.
Right.
The city was falling apart by artillery fire in the morning of my birth. I was in it, escaped genocide. And look, I had my share of trauma. I have a full career in special operations. Right. I have but I choose.
Right.
I choose to be better.
Right.
And I know that it takes work, right? It takes work and it takes a different mindset. The mindset that I had kicking in the door was a different mindset that I have today.
But the discipline to affect those actions is the same, right? Like, you're right, the mindset is different, but the discipline to affect the actions is the same, right? You've just shifted your focus from.
If I tell you Bushido is to readily accept death, right? And the mindset that I had in war is to readily accept death. Mm-hmm. I'm willing to die for what I believe in. And my mindset today, I'm willing to die for what I believe in. How can you stop that?
Right.
How can you?
But I think there's an interesting balance, or even in some people, I think, an internal struggle between the statement, I am willing to die for that, right? Like, I think any parent would say, I am willing to die for my family. But are you willing to work so hard to live your best self for your family? Right? Just because you're willing to die for something doesn't mean that you're willing to fight equally hard to live your full life. Because a lot of people are living just a shell of themselves, a fraction of their potential.
But if I say this, I'm willing to die for your family. Okay, you're willing to die for your family. Were you even a good person to your family?
Exactly.
Were you even a good person to yourself?
Exactly.
Because you're not a good person yourself, you're not a good person in your family.
Exactly.
You cannot be. You can't give what you don't have.
Yes.
Confucius was a philosopher dating back to 200 BC in China. And Confucius said, and this resonates with me, Confucius said that if you wish the world to be a better place, then it starts with you. Mm. So, every day it has to start with you. It has to start with, well, first, the most powerful muscle in your body is your brain. It has to start with there. And then it has to go into your physical training, because you have to change your physiology. You have to have the same frequency of mind and body. Yes. And that's what I'm doing. I'm lining up that frequency. Remember, I told you, I get up in the morning, the first thing I have is anxieties. My frequency's off. Mm-hmm. Okay, I have to exhale. I'm going to exhale that negative energy, and then now now that my brain is calm, my soul is calm, I'm going to hit it with intensity, right? Because I'm changing my physical state.
Yes.
To work in unison with that elite mind.
Right.
If I say I'm training my mind to be elite, I have to train my body to be elite.
Of course.
And a lot of guys, in the military, and my peers, they might have been this elite commando. But a commando and a lot of team guys is very pack driven. Mm-hmm. When you remove yourself from the pack, when you become Ronin, when you walk alone, mm-hmm. that's when you find your true strength. You had it or you didn't. Right. Did somebody had to tell you to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and work on yourself? Or was that the Army telling you to do it?
Right.
Which one did you draw from? Was it you or was it the Army? Was it you or was it the teams? And on the teams, look, man, it's about the teams, right? It's about that guy next to you. But when you walk alone.
That's true. I never thought about it that way, but if you got through buds with your team, could you get through buds all by yourself?
Well,
could you get through hell week
but also,
all by yourself?
Also, at one stage of your life, the guy that you were in your 20s is not the guy you were in your 30s. The guy that's after war is different.
It's true.
So, did you have it or not?
Right.
And it's not about having it when everything is perfect, everything is right. Did you have it when you're fucking in the dark? Yeah. Did you have it when you're lost? Do you have it when nobody believed in you? Yeah. Did you have it at all?
Yeah.
And that comes from walking alone. That comes with consistency. It comes with discipline. And what I did this morning was, look, 6 years of me gathering intelligence, finding what worked for me, listening to different doctors, listening to different elite athletes, right? Listening to what they have to say, pulling that knowledge and putting it into my world.
But I think the other thing is it's given you another mission.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because when you were in, it was always about the next mission.
Yes.
And that was the focus. So we're training for the next mission. We're staying healthy for the next mission. We're looking after our team for the next mission. But once you're out, what's the mission?
Well, you can make anything you want.
Exactly.
And that's what's so beautiful about being Ronin, to be masterless. I'm an artist. I'm going to give my art to the world. And my art consists of being in a video game. My art is to be on the history channel. My art is to teach. My art's philosophy. My art is Bushido. And this stage in the world is about me giving Bushido. Bu means to intercept, to stop. She is the one who's strong enough to walk that path. And Do, well, that's what I'm doing now, is to take my whole life, package it up and give it back to the world. Right? And that's what I'm doing, not just in the sense of being a warrior, but also healing. Let me show you how I healed myself. And I wish you nothing but love. Because I know if I give you love and kindness, then we create a better world.
Yeah, it's true.
Right?
It is true.
And what is a warrior? A warrior is here to create a better world, is here, to stop the suffering from the evils of this world. So what does a warrior do when he's off the battlefield? He gives. And that's what, I'm doing. That's part of my healing process. Right, so understand, with just my morning routine is also a mindset, it's a way of living, and it feeds into being an entrepreneur.
I love it. I think you're onto something, and I think there are countless people that can benefit from what you've discovered.
Thank you.
Well, too, I mean, we've only spent so far a few hours together, but I can tell you, I have already learned so much from what you've walked us through about your morning routine, and especially why it is that you do it. You know, I think, like I shared earlier, you're one of the few people in my travels that has presented this in a way that, you know, didn't leave me walking away feeling like, oh yeah, that's you know, mystical hocus pocus, that's good for you, but I'm not that guy. But I think that having that spiritual center, which I have in common with you, but I think it is applying that discipline and that routine to all areas of your life, to aspire to be the best version of yourself, so that you're prepared for whatever mission stands ahead of you. And whether that's just serving your family, or it's serving your community, serving yourself, you know, being an entrepreneur, whatever it is that you're capable or you aspire to do, you know, you hear it a lot. You hear Tony Robbins talk about it. You hear everybody, some version, saying, you know, you have to invest in yourself. Yes. And I think when a lot of people hear that, maybe they even think, okay, yeah, you know, I'll work out for an hour a day. Like, there, I'm investing in myself, check the box. But you're right, the most powerful weapon and tool that we have is our mind. And honestly, I would argue it is probably the most neglected thing that we abuse on a daily basis, right? That we don't take care of, we don't invest in it, we don't train it, and we expect it to just perform flawlessly day in, day out, as we age and as we continue to add baggage to it. So, you know,
Let me say something.
Yeah.
The worst thing that you can do as a human being is expect something new by doing the same shit over and over every single day and expect change.
Yeah.
How foolish.
Completely foolish. I feel, yeah, I'm feeling that. So mission accomplished on your part. And I'm personally excited to, you know, begin this journey. And I know it's not going to be easy. It, you know, likely will take me years as well. But, you know, for the first time, I see the benefit to it. And it is just common sense, right? I mean, it's logical. Yes. Why wouldn't you invest in that? So I really appreciate you taking the time and you opening up your home and just, you know, kind of bearing, you know, your soul and your truth and everything to us, and sharing this, you know, this personal part of yourself and your journey with us, because I'm telling you, it's changed me. I think it's going to change a lot of people, and I'm super excited to spend the rest of the day and a little bit of tomorrow with you to learn more, because if it's anything like what the morning's been like, I think we're all going to walk away changed people for the better. So I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much.